Would I be the asshole if I told my landlord about my roommate's husband? I, 18F, just started my freshman year of college last week. At my university, it is not mandatory that you live on campus the first year, and I did not want to live in a dorm, so my parents helped me apartment hunt. They mostly just gave me tips or helped when asked because they wanted me to pick what I thought would be best for me, since I'm ultimately going to be the one paying for the rent. I chose a place very close to campus, 5–15-minute walk depending on which building you're heading to, and with great amenities in relation to my rent payment. It's not campus-owned, but it is exclusively marketed to students and has a questionnaire on the application for the purpose of placing you with your roommates that asks about your major, Greek affiliation, clubs, etc. Anyway, I applied, got accepted, and got a letter 2 weeks prior to move in with my apartment number, bedroom number, and the name, phone hash of my new roomies for a 3-bed unit. We made a group chat and started to get to know each other. Layla, 19F, is a sophomore, and Mina, 23F, is a college super senior. I found out what they study, what they like, what they hate, what they're allergic to, their ground rules, etc. Everything seemed great. Then the day I move in I learn Mina is married. Her husband Kurt, 25M, is nice, but he didn't leave. After a couple days I come to learn that he lives in the apartment with Mina. Definitely not what I was expecting and not what I signed up for. The apartment complex does not do co-ed living unless you and another person apply together for a 2-bed unit. I ended up asking Mina offhandedly where Kurt stays just to confirm, and she said he lives with her in her room. She asked me in a joking tone if I'd be hush-hush about it because the leasing office doesn't know and this is the cheapest option for them with all the amenities they want until they get a house together, which they're planning to finance in the spring when they're sure Mina is going to graduate. They're also apparently trying, or will start trying, for a baby because they're ready for a family. I'm upset and uncomfortable and I don't know what to do. I want to report Mina to the leasing office and get her removed. But I'm worried that even thought they're the ones breaking the rules that I might just be overreacting. I really don't like living with a grown man I don't know when I signed up to live with other girls, primarily in my age group. I was excited to move in with people that I wouldn't feel weird walking around in a sports bra and gym shorts, and being able to go to the fridge in the middle of the night for a snack in my underwear, and not having to lock the door every time I go in or leave my room, but I don't feel like I can do that with Kurt here. I've already caught him looking me up and down and I really don't want it to go past that and there be drama on top of all of this. Would I be the asshole if I just report the situation to my landlord? Edit. I'll be talking to Layla tomorrow when we've got some time alone. Also I need to clarify something that seems to have been misunderstood. Mina and Kurt wouldn't be homeless, they would just have to move back in with their parents. When I said in my explanation they would have nowhere to go, I meant that, as far as I know, they don't have relatives in town or a friend with an extra room. So Mina would likely have to switch her classes to online or take a gap semester or gap year before finishing her degree, that is if she can't find someone to stay with, if she even gets removed from the apartment. Also, she and Kurt aren't broke college kids. They both come relatively well-off families, I'm guessing, because they each have new, pretty expensive cars and no payments, and Mina has mentioned to me that she'll be graduating debt-free and never had to take out a loan. This is all on top of the fact that Kurt has no job, which got confirmed to me like an hour ago, and they've both talked in front of me about how they'll be able to afford a $10,000 down payment on a house in spring. They're also looking for home back in the city they're from, which is far more expensive than buying a place in most of the rest of the state. Maybe I'm being a bit presumptuous, but I think they would have been able to financially handle moving into a different place. I'll update again tomorrow after talking to Layla. WNBTA. Go to the office and ask for a new room, citing that you are uncomfortable living with a strange man. And also mention that even if he were to leave, you wouldn't feel comfortable with Mina as a roommate once she knew you were the one who mentioned it. And you'll need that room today or they can put you up in a hotel until it's ready. Not the asshole. That is not what the tenant rules or lease allows and was presented under false pretense. You should not be forced to cohabitate with a random dude, especially when he's being a creeper. And can you tell the leasing office anonymously? At 18 living with a guy isn't fair when you looked for specifically female roommates. I wouldn't feel comfortable at that age, plus it isn't fair you're paying the same amount but she's added an extra person. Not the asshole. Don't blame you for not wanting to have to worry about having a man in your apartment when he's not supposed to be there. I understand they're trying to save money, but they're also breaking the rules. You pretty much have 3 choices, and that's either move out, deal with it, or report them. They all suck in my opinion, but you gotta do what's best for you. Not the asshole. Mina is breaking the rules and wants you all to be complicit. Report this situation to the housing department immediately so things can be sorted out as soon as possible. Mina and Kurt will have to find a new place. AITAH for expecting more from my mom as a grandmother to my daughter. My mom made the choice 5 years ago to move to Canada where she's from. She left my childhood home, my father, and to an extent, me. I was really angry at her and went to therapy for a long time to work on my resentment towards her. She said she wanted to move to Canada because she missed out on time with her siblings. We went to visit her family at least once a year for 2-3 weeks at a time when I was growing up. When I asked her what her plan was for seeing me, she said, well, if you get married or have a baby, I'll come. I was in my mid-20s and single at the time. I recently had my first baby. During my mat leave she voluntarily kept her promise and came to stay and help us for 4 weeks, then was back on her way to Canada. Mostly everything was good except I saw a few messages on her phone while she was with us of her talking shit about me and our apartment to my cousins. I want to have a good relationship with my mother, so we made the effort during my mat leave to visit her. When my daughter was 5 months old we traveled to her place. It's a 5-hour flight plus 1.5-hour propeller flight plus 2-hour car drive. My daughter was exhausted. My husband had a tough time working because there is no Wi-Fi where she lives. It was all just so inconvenient and consuming. I couldn't picture myself bringing my family there on a regular basis. So while on the trip I asked her if she had given any thought to returning to California. And her response was that she can visit a couple times a year. I freaked out on her and asked why she pressured me so often to have a kids if she wasn't going to be around. She turned around and said, I knew it, it's too much pressure on you to have a baby. You didn't want her. We had a massive argument that resulted in me crying and her saying she would try to figure something out. But when I saw her later this summer for my late wedding reception, which she made no effort to help with, my mill was more helpful. She had zero plans of changing up her lifestyle. I get that this was her retirement dream and she deserves her own happiness. But all of her siblings are enjoying their own grandkids. Am I wrong to think there is some responsibility that comes with being grandmother, that is if you intend to be involved? I haven't asked her for anything in years. She is consistently Mia when comes to returning calls and texts. She disappears for days at a time to travel to visit my cousins and their kids. She lives in the middle of nowhere where her closest family member is a 90-minute drive. How can this be better than watching your granddaughter grow up? Edit. Historically, my mother has been a very selfish person. Her being Canada has been permanent for 5 years, but in a grey area for 5 years before that. She kept doing longer and longer stints up there. I never got upset with her when she ignored me for weeks or even months at a time. Yes, I don't need her anymore and she doesn't owe me, but we could have an adult friendship if anything. She has told me since I was little that she wanted me to have 5 kids. I'm in no way planning for that and did not have my daughter for her, but based on how much she wanted grandkids I thought she might have even a thought to start spending more time in California. When I asked her, I asked specifically about winter months. She said she can come visit a couple times a year, not that she would. She also had a clause that my husband and I should make sure we buy a big enough home for her. That was part of her talking shit about my family that we don't own a home yet. I feel like I'm begging and trying to convince her of my worth, to be around more. It seems like responsibility was really the wrong choice of word. I guess what I was looking to say is effort, like I make an effort with my nieces. No one asks me to, but I care about those relationships. She haggled me to invite all her friends to my wedding. She wanted to make sure it was to a certain quality but didn't bother to help. It's like everything is a show to her. She wants grandkids but doesn't care whether they know her. They won't remember her the way things are. Having grandchild was just another checkmark for her. Judging based solely off what's in this post. You are the asshole. Your mom raised you and then went back to her home country to live a life she'd been missing. It's inconvenient for you to meet her on her turf and you're mad she won't rearrange her life to be around your kid. She's raised her kid and now she wants this new life. She doesn't owe you anything. And if you had a kid based on her opinions, well, that's on you. You are the asshole. Have children for yourself. Because you want them. Not because you want to have a different relationship with your mom. She's already told you that she's gonna visit a couple times a year. In my opinion that's pretty good. I've got 2 sets of grandparents. They both live in the same city as me. I didn't see any of them very often. It's not a guarantee even when they live in the same city. You are the asshole for expecting your mom to move to California, a different freaking country, just because you had a kid. Mild, you are the asshole. Having a child is an intensely personal choice and it's not fair to impose expectations on your mom as a grandma. Some grandparents, whether due to age or comfort around babies, can't or won't babysit or visit frequently. It is what it is. It sounds like your mom lost her self-identity when she became a mom, and looked to re-find it by moving back to Canada when you were older. Appreciate the time you do have with her, whenever that occurs, and make the best of it. Am I wrong to think there is some responsibility that comes with being grandmother that is if you intend to be involved? Yeah, you are. Your mother is a grown woman who decided to move back to where she grew up and spend more time with her siblings. She visited when her grandchild was born. She visits a couple of times a year. This is great, especially given how unfun the trip you describe sounds. It's also more often than she used to travel back to Canada, which you describe as if it should have been enough for her. You are the asshole for expecting your mom to move back and for judging her for not doing so. You are the asshole. Am I wrong to think there is some responsibility that comes with being grandmother that is if you intend to be involved? Not everyone woman is a let's make cookies and have a sleepover type of grandmother. Your mother doesn't owe you her physical presence, nor does she have to meet your expectations of what a grandmother should and should not be. Plenty of families are separated and manage to stay in contact and have relationships. Am I the asshole for how I handled my husband drive-by farting on our baby? My husband, 28 male, to me, 27 female, is perfect. He's loving and supportive, he has a fantastic personality, among many other fantastic qualities. Not to mention, he has been a super dad ever since our daughter was born. I am so thankful for him and love him completely. And #X200B. Last week, we had a Disney movie night. He and I were cuddled on the couch and our daughter was in her walker in front of us. My husband got up to refill my water, and as he was walking towards the kitchen, he lifted his leg up next to our baby, said, "Drive by," and farted in her direction. I died laughing, which got my husband to laugh, and in turn, our daughter started laughing, which made it even funnier. Unfortunately, I think the positive reinforcement of this opened a Pandora's box of baby-targeted drive-by farts. And #X200B. Every day since, he has farted on her. He'll walk wherever she is, lift up his leg, say, "Drive by," and fart. Some instances when he has decided to bomb the baby, while she was getting ready to nap. While she was playing with her toys. When we were reading a children's book. Even during bath time. What was initially funny started to get old pretty quickly. And #X200B. The final straw was a few nights ago. He had made a nice dinner for us and a new meal for the baby to try. We had her in her high chair near the dining table. We are in the process of introducing her to new foods and that night was bananas. The amount of time it took for my husband and I to finish eating was the same amount of time for our daughter to decide she was ready to try the new food. While I was coaxing her into taking a bite, my husband offered to take our dishes to the sink, but he also had a grin on his face. In my mind, I'm thinking, there's no fucking way. But lo and behold, he walks near our baby, lifts his leg, and rips out a loud, almost cartoonish-sounding fart so loud it could have shattered a wine glass directly onto our baby. She began cackling until the smell hit her, she began gagging and spit up the banana onto herself. And #X200B. My husband was cracking up, but stopped when he realized I wasn't. He immediately tried to calm himself and apologize, but he said, "Come on, you gotta admit that was fucking hilarious." I was wiping the spit-up banana off our daughter and snapped a little and said, "She's probably going to hate bananas forever because of this. What were you thinking?" And #X200B. He stopped laughing and got quiet for a moment before kneeling down and helping me clean her up. He apologized. I was annoyed but didn't think much of it until later when we were in bed and he asked me if I thought he was too immature. I told him it didn't bother me, but that tonight just wasn't as funny as he has hoped. He kept apologizing to me and said he'd be better. And #X200B. I feel really bad. I apologized myself the next morning for getting frustrated with him, and he told me I didn't have to, but I hate seeing the man I love beat himself up over something so silly. So am I the asshole for how I reacted? I don't think he is the asshole at all. Not the asshole, but maybe it's time to stop farting on the baby now. That's a sentence I hope to never type again. You are the asshole. I am not an uptight prude, not even close. But the fact that two adults think it is funny to fart on their child is disgusting to me. Will you want your daughter to do that to you when she is 12 or 15? Makes me speechless. Is this real? I get it. The baby gagging is enough to say it wasn't an overreaction. I don't know why some men think farts are so funny. It's okay to get frustrated with someone in the moment. Anger is a normal emotion. Also, you apologized for what you felt was an overreaction. I also think once is funny, but to keep farting on or near your baby is weird and gross. Also, he caused her to literally gag herself. It's no longer funny. It was one funny moment the first time. I would tell him that. Like, hey, it was funny once, but please don't do that anymore. There are plenty of other funny, goofy things you guys can other than that. Am I the asshole for telling my mother-in-law to back off when I suggested my husband legally change his name? I, 23 female, am married to my husband, 24 male. We meet in our second year of university and fell in love and just knew it was meant to be and never looked back. I am also currently 5 months pregnant with our first child. It wasn't planned, but we are both super excited and knew we wanted to be parents in the future and can't wait to welcome our little baby into the world soon. My husband has a long name that he doesn't like and asks people call him another name. For the purpose of this post, I am just going to call him Alexander for short. When I met Alexander back in university, he introduced himself as Alex. It wasn't until I was hanging out with his friends one day that I found our Alex was just a nickname. When I asked him about it, he said that he really hates his name and wanted to change it. However, when he spoke to his parents about it, his mum broke down into tears, saying it would make her a failure as her son would hate himself, which is not true at all. My husband loves his family and would do anything to help them. He said he brought it up another time and got a completely different reaction, where his mother said we don't change our names as parents do it for a reason. Since then he just decided he'll live with it because he loves his parents and didn't feel it was worth losing his mother over, and he can just introduce himself as Alex. Now for the juicy part of the story. My husband and I try to have family dinner once a fortnight with his family to keep in contact, especially with baby on the way. He had mentioned to me beforehand he wanted to change his name legally before baby came because he wants a name he likes and feels better represents him on the paperwork of his child, and I completely support him, so I suggested he bring it up at family dinner. When we were all seated at dinner, my mother-in-law started talking about baby names. We decided we weren't going to discuss them with anyone and keep it a surprise, so I took the opportunity to change the subject about my husband's name instead. My husband starting to bring the topic up when his mother told him he had no right to change his name. She asked us how we would feel if our child told us they wanted to change their name. I said I didn't care, as baby's happiness is much more important than what we call them. She told me I was delusional and turned to my husband against her. She followed this up by saying, if that's how you really feel about your name, then get out and don't bother coming back. Now let me tell you, this is when I lost it and every pregnancy hormone in my body kicked in and I let it fly. I told her she needed to back off and stop being a self-centered uptight bitch and support her son. She was appalled. I told husband that we were leaving and weren't coming back until his mum apologized. Looking back on it now, I feel back for what I said and how I handled the situation. However, I just want my husband to be happy and confident about his name. So am I the asshole? Legally he can change his name without his mommy's permission. You both knew it was a minefield and went on with it anyway. Mom sucks for going over the top, but you went into, as you stated, pregnancy rage. I feel bad for you, husband, but he could just do it anyway and not say anything. Why does his family even need to know? Change his legal, paperwork, name and use it on baby's birth certificate. It's not like Mill has any business seeing it, and if she does, it's too late and won't matter anyway. I would go with you or the asshole. This was for your husband to deal with. Sounds like you wanted to go at your Mill. Yes, you are the asshole, and it's not even a close one. Whether you agree with your Mill or not, I think you should have at least enough empathy to consider the possibility that some parents would consider their child changing their name to be a mortal insult. In this case, you had ample forewarning that this was probably the case, and you not only broached the subject bluntly with no forewarning, but cursed at her. I might vote differently if she'd given the same ultimatum had the subject been broached more delicately. I agree with the poster who points out that your family doesn't need to ask permission or seek approval to do it. You were looking for a reaction out of her. She needs to chill.